I had no idea that the elderly woman crying in the hospital waiting room at 2 a.m. would become the mother I'd always needed. I had no idea that 3 years later, she'd be sitting in the front row at my nursing school graduation, as my emergency contact, my next of kin, my mom, while my biological mother stood in the back, uninvited, watching the daughter she'd abandoned claim a new family. The phone call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of my shift at County General, 3 patients deep into my rounds, when my phone buzzed. Mom. I almost didn't answer. Our conversations lately had been short, always ending with her sighing about how stressed she was dealing with my brother Tyler's new restaurant venture. Mom? Everything okay? Vanessa. Her voice had that edge to it, the one that meant I was about to disappoint her somehow. I need you to take some personal time next week. I ducked into the supply closet, pressing the phone closer to my ear. What? Mom, I can't just take time off. We're short-staffed as it is. What's going on? Tyler's having the soft opening of his restaurant. The whole family needs to be there. It's important. I requested that weekend off 2 months ago, I said slowly. You told me family dinner was more important than my CNA certification exam. Well, this is more important than that exam was. I felt something crack inside my chest. I missed my certification exam for a family dinner where Tyler spent the entire time on his phone with investors. Now you want me to miss work? I need to pay my bills for his restaurant opening? Don't be dramatic, Vanessa. This is Tyler's dream. He needs family support. What about my dreams, Mom? I'm trying to get into nursing school. I need this job. I need the experience. You've been a CNA for 2 years. You'll have other shifts. Tyler only gets 1 grand opening. The supply closet suddenly felt too small. I can't take the time off. I'm sorry. There was a pause. Then, Tyler said you'd do this. Do what? Make everything about you. He specifically asked me to call you because he knew you'd find some way to make his big day about your little nursing dreams. My little nursing dreams. The words hit like a slap. Mom, I'm not trying to. You know what? Don't bother. Don't come to the opening. Tyler doesn't need the stress of wondering if you'll show up or if you'll spend the whole night sulking because you're not the center of attention. I never said I wouldn't. Tyler's been working so hard, and he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. The last thing he needs is his sister creating drama because she's jealous. I couldn't breathe. Jealous? Mom, I'm trying to build a career. I'm trying to. I have to go. Tyler's calling. We'll send you pictures. The line went dead. I stood in that supply closet for 5 minutes, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My mother had just uninvited me from my brother's restaurant opening because I couldn't abandon my job. Because I had the audacity to have my own life, my own goals. The shift ended at 7 a.m. I drove home in silence, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed throughout the day. Tyler's restaurant opening was in 4 days. My family group chat was full of messages about what everyone was wearing, what time they'd arrive, how excited they were. No one mentioned me. 3 days later, I got the call that changed everything. Vanessa Martinez? The voice was professional, clipped. This is County General Hospital. We have your mother, Patricia Martinez, in the emergency department. She's asking for you. My heart stopped. What happened? Is she okay? She's stable. Minor car accident. Some bruising. Possible concussion. She's very anxious and asking for family. I was in my car in under 2 minutes. The ER was chaos as always, but I found my mother in Bay 7, sitting up in bed, looking more annoyed than injured. My father sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. Mom! I rushed to her side. Are you okay? She looked at me, and something cold passed over her face. What are you doing here? I blinked. The hospital called me. They said you asked for me. I asked for Tyler. Where's Tyler? My father finally looked up from his phone. He's at the restaurant. Final preparations. Big day tomorrow. Tomorrow? I turned to my mother. Mom, you were in a car accident. Shouldn't Tyler be here? He has a business to run, Vanessa. Unlike some people, he has real responsibilities. The nurse who'd been checking my mother's vitals looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Ma'am, she said gently, You asked us to call your emergency contact. My mother's face flushed. I meant to update that. My son should be listed. But I'm your daughter, I whispered. Your brother has more important things to deal with right now. You're here, aren't you? You can drive us home. I stood there, frozen, as my mother signed discharge papers. My father had already walked out to bring the car around. The nurse touched my arm gently. Honey, are you okay? I nodded, not trusting my voice. You're a CNA here, right? I've seen you around. Martinez? Yeah. She squeezed my arm. Take care of yourself, okay? Not just everyone else. I drove my parents home in silence. When we pulled into their driveway, my mother turned to me. You're still planning on causing problems tomorrow, aren't you? What? Tyler's opening. Your father and I need to focus on supporting him. We can't be worried about you making a scene. I'm working tomorrow, Mom. I already told you that. Good. She opened the car door. That's better anyway. Tyler will be relieved. They walked into the house without looking back. I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes, crying so hard I couldn't see. Then I drove to the only place that made sense. Back to the hospital, back to work. I wasn't scheduled, but I needed to be somewhere I mattered, somewhere I was useful. The night shift supervisor, Marie, found me in the break room at 10 p.m. Martinez? What are you doing here? You're not on tonight. I know. She sat down across from me, her kind eyes taking in my blotchy face and red eyes. What happened? And I told her everything. My mother's accident, the phone call about Tyler's restaurant, the years of being second choice, the emergency contact situation, all of it. Marie listened without interrupting. How long has this been going on? She finally asked. As long as I can remember. Tyler's the golden child. He's charming, ambitious, everything they wanted. I don't know what I am to them. Marie was quiet for a moment. You know what you are? You're a damn good CNA who shows up for her patients every single day. You're someone who cares so much about helping people that you came to work on your night off just to feel valued. And if your parents can't see that, that's their loss. But they're my family. Blood doesn't make family, sweetie. Love does. Respect does. Showing up does. And from where I'm sitting, they're not doing any of that. I went home that night and made a decision. I was done chasing people who didn't want to be caught. I was done making myself smaller so Tyler could shine brighter. I was done apologizing for having dreams of my own. I didn't go to Tyler's restaurant opening. I worked my shift, took care of my patients, and when my mother called screaming about how I'd embarrassed them by not showing up, I let it go to voicemail. I deleted the family group chat. I stopped responding to texts that only came when they needed something from me. For the first time in my life, I put myself first. 2 months later, I was working a night shift when everything changed again. It was 2:15 a.m., and the ER was relatively quiet. I was restocking supplies when I heard someone crying in the waiting room. Soft, broken sobs that made my chest ache. I peered around the corner. An elderly woman, maybe late 60s, sat alone in the corner, her face in her hands. She wore a nice dress, now wrinkled, and her purse had spilled onto the floor beside her. Ma'am? I approached slowly. Can I help you with something? She looked up, and her eyes were so full of pain it nearly knocked me over. My husband. They just took him back. Heart attack. I don't know what to do. I knelt beside her, helping gather the contents of her purse. What's your name? Dorothy. Dorothy Chen. My husband is Richard. I'm Vanessa. I'm a CNA here. Her face crumpled. We don't have children. It's just us. Something in my chest shifted. I looked at this woman, alone and terrified in a hospital waiting room at 2 a.m., and I saw myself. I saw every time I'd needed someone, and no one came. Would you like some company? I asked. I can't leave my shift, but I can sit with you when I have breaks. Dorothy grabbed my hand. Would you? I don't want to be a burden, but You're not a burden. Let me get you some water. And a warm blanket, okay? Then I'll check on your husband's status. I spent that night bouncing between my patients and Dorothy. Every break, every spare moment, I sat with her. I held her hand when the doctor came out to explain that Richard had survived but needed surgery. I stayed with her while she called their friends, her voice shaking. I brought her terrible hospital coffee and graham crackers from the vending machine. At 6 a.m., as my shift was ending, Dorothy caught my hand. "Thank you. You didn't have to do any of this." "I wanted to," I said honestly. "Nobody should go through something like this alone." "You're an angel. Your mother must be so proud of you." I felt my smile falter. "I don't really talk to my mother anymore." Dorothy's eyes searched my face. "It's okay. Some families just don't work out." "Well," she said firmly, "their loss is the world's gain." "Thank you, Vanessa, truly." I didn't expect to see Dorothy again. But 3 days later, she was back in the ER waiting room, this time with a basket covered in a checkered cloth. "Vanessa!" She waved me over. "I was hoping to catch you. Mrs. Chen? Is everything okay? Is your husband?" "Richard is fine. He's home, recovering beautifully. I wanted to thank you properly." She pushed the basket into my hands. "It's not much. Some banana bread I made this morning, and a thank you card." Inside the card was a handwritten note that made my eyes sting. "You were there when we had no one. That kind of kindness is rare. Thank you for being our angel that night. Love, Dorothy and Richard Chen." At the bottom was a phone number. "If you ever need anything, call us. We mean that." I called 3 weeks later, on my birthday. I'd spent it alone. My parents had texted a generic happy birthday at noon, and Tyler hadn't acknowledged it at all. I was sitting in my apartment, eating takeout Chinese food, when I looked at that phone number. I almost didn't dial, but something made me pick up the phone. "Hello?" Dorothy's warm voice answered. "Mrs. Chen? This is Vanessa. From the hospital? I don't know if you remember." "Vanessa, of course I remember. How are you, dear?" "I'm good. I saw your note again, and I wanted to thank you properly. It meant a lot." "Are you all right? You sound sad." And just like that, I was crying, telling this woman I barely knew about my birthday, my family, how lonely I felt. She listened to all of it. "Where are you right now?" she asked when I finished. "Home." "It's fine, really. I'm just being." "What's your address?" "What?" "Your address, dear. Give it to me." 45 minutes later, Dorothy and Richard showed up at my door with a homemade cake, candles, and party hats. "Nobody spends their birthday alone," Dorothy declared, marching into my apartment. "Not if we have anything to say about it." We spent the evening playing cards, eating cake, and laughing. Richard told terrible jokes that made Dorothy roll her eyes and me snort with laughter. When they left at 10 p.m., Dorothy hugged me tight. "You call us if you need anything." "I mean that, Vanessa. Anything." That was the beginning. Over the next year, Dorothy and Richard became my family. It happened slowly, naturally, like water finding its level. Sunday dinners at their house, Richard teaching me how to change my car's oil, Dorothy showing me how to make her famous dumplings. They came to the hospital to celebrate when I got accepted into nursing school. They were the first people I called when I had a bad day. They never pushed, never asked intrusive questions about my biological family. They just loved me, consistently and unconditionally, in a way I'd never experienced before. My mother called once during that first year, asking if I could help move Tyler into his new condo. I said no. She said I was being selfish. I hung up and called Dorothy, who made me tea and told me I was doing the right thing. "Family isn't obligation," she said firmly. "It's choice, and you're choosing yourself. That takes courage." Nursing school was brutal. There were nights I wanted to quit, days I felt like I wasn't smart enough, strong enough, good enough. Dorothy and Richard were there for all of it. Richard quizzed me on anatomy. Dorothy made sure I ate during finals week. They celebrated every past exam like it was a national holiday. When I graduated nursing school, they were front row center. Dorothy cried through the entire ceremony. Richard took approximately 500 photos. Afterward, they took me to dinner and toasted my success. "We're so proud of you," Dorothy said, reaching across the table to hold my hand. "You've worked so hard for this." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said honestly. "You two have been. You've been more family to me than my actual family ever was." Richard cleared his throat, looking emotional. Vanessa, we need to tell you something. My heart dropped. What? Is something wrong? Are you sick? No, no, Dorothy laughed, wiping her eyes. Nothing like that. We wanted you to know that we updated our emergency contacts. You're listed for both of us. I stared at them. What? You're our family, Richard said simply. We don't have children, never could. But we have you. And that's more than enough. I burst into tears right there in the restaurant. Dorothy came around to my side of the booth and held me while I sobbed. We love you, she whispered. Not because we have to. Because we want to. Because you're ours. That was 2 years ago. Last month, I got engaged. James proposed on a beach at sunset, and it was perfect. When I called to tell Dorothy and Richard, they screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. We're planning the wedding, Dorothy declared. Don't argue. We're doing it. And they did. Dorothy and I spent weeks looking at venues, trying cakes, choosing flowers. Richard walked around with sample playlists, asking everyone's opinion on first dance songs. They treated wedding planning like an Olympic sport, and they were going for gold. I hadn't spoken to my biological family in almost 3 years. My parents occasionally texted always when they needed something or wanted to tell me about Tyler's latest achievement. I never responded, but somehow, word got out about my engagement. Tyler posted something on social media about family celebrations, and I should have known better than to think they'd leave me alone. My mother called 2 weeks before the wedding. I almost didn't answer. Vanessa. Her voice was falsely bright. Congratulations on your engagement. We just heard. Why didn't you tell us? We're not in contact, Mom. Don't be silly. We're your family. Of course we're in contact. Your father and I want to help with the wedding. We'll pay for. The wedding is paid for. A pause. By James's family? No. By my family. Well, yes. We want to contribute. Not you, Dorothy and Richard, my actual family, the people who show up for me. The line went very quiet. Who? The people who have been there for me for the past 3 years. The people who supported me through nursing school. The people who love me because they choose to, not because they have to. Vanessa, I don't understand. Are you saying some strangers are more important than your own mother? They're not strangers. They're my family. And yes, they're more important than you, because they've actually acted like family. How dare you? I need to go, Mom. I have a wedding to plan with my real parents. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The wedding was small, intimate, perfect. Dorothy and Richard sat in the front row, holding hands and crying happy tears. When the officiant asked who gives this bride, they both stood up. We do, Dorothy said, her voice strong and clear. With all our love. I couldn't see through my tears as I hugged them both. My family. My real family. The reception was in full swing when I saw them. My mother, father, and Tyler, standing at the entrance to the venue. They weren't on the guest list. They hadn't been invited. But there they were, dressed up, looking expectant. My mother's face when she saw Dorothy and Richard at the parents' table was something I'll never forget. Confusion, then understanding, then something that might have been pain. James squeezed my hand. Do you want me to ask them to leave? I looked at my biological parents, standing awkwardly by the door while my real parents laughed and danced with my friends. I looked at Dorothy, who had spent hours helping me into my dress that morning. I looked at Richard, who had cried when I asked him to share the father-daughter dance with James's dad. No, I said. Let them watch. Let them see what they gave up. My mother approached our table eventually. Vanessa, can we talk? I'm in the middle of my wedding reception, Mom. I just want to understand. Those people, the older couple, you're calling them your parents? They are my parents. In every way that matters. But we raised you. We're your real family. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no longing. Just nothing. You gave birth to me, I said quietly. That's biology. Dorothy and Richard raised me to believe I was worth loving. That's family. Vanessa, please. Tyler just got engaged too. We could do a family celebration, both of you. I'm celebrating with my family. You're looking at them. My father spoke up for the first time. We made mistakes. We can fix this. You had years to fix it. You chose Tyler every single time. You made it clear I wasn't a priority, wasn't important, wasn't worth your time. So I found people who thought differently. You can't just replace us, my mother said. And now she was crying. I didn't replace you. You were never there to begin with. Dorothy and Richard didn't fill a void you left. They created something new, something you never gave me. What's that? My father asked. Unconditional love. The feeling that I matter. That my dreams are just as important as Tyler's. That I'm not an afterthought or an obligation. I stood up. I'm done with this conversation. You weren't invited to this wedding. Please leave. Vanessa. Leave. Or I'll have security escort you out. They left. Tyler didn't even look at me as they walked out. I went back to my wedding, back to my family, back to the people who chose me. Dorothy pulled me onto the dance floor, spinning me around while Richard and James laughed and clapped. You okay? She asked softly. I'm perfect, I said, and meant it. I have everything I need. We love you, sweetheart. So much. I love you too, Mom. Her eyes filled with tears. It was the first time I'd called her that out loud. She pulled me close, hugging me tight. That's the best gift you could have given me, she whispered. That was 6 months ago. Dorothy and Richard are officially listed as my emergency contacts, my next of kin. When I bought my first house last month, they were the ones helping me move in. When I got my first RN position in the ICU, they threw me a party bigger than my wedding. My biological parents sent a card to my new address. I don't know how they got it. The card said they missed me, that they wanted to rebuild our relationship, that family was important. I threw it away without responding. Because I already have family. I have 2 people who showed up when I needed them, who loved me when I felt unlovable, who chose me every single day. I have Dorothy and Richard Chen, the parents I needed, the family I deserved. And that's more than enough. That's everything. Sometimes people ask if I regret cutting off my biological family. The answer is simple. No. You can't regret losing something you never really had. What I have now is real. What I have now is love. What I have now is family. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Dorothy and I were having coffee yesterday when she told me she and Richard updated their will. They left everything to me. Their house, their savings, their legacy. You're our daughter, she said simply. This was always meant to be yours. I cried. Again. I seem to do that a lot around them. You gave me more than money or houses, I told her. You gave me something I'd never had before. You made me believe I was worth loving. Oh, sweetheart, she said, taking my hand. You were always worth loving. We just recognized what your biological family was too blind to see. Last week, Tyler got married. I saw the photos on social media, my parents beaming, giving speeches, posting about their successful son and his beautiful wedding. I felt nothing. No jealousy, no pain, no longing. I just felt grateful. Grateful that I'd found my real family. Grateful that I'd learned the difference between biology and love. Grateful that I'd chosen myself when no one else would. Tonight, I'm having dinner at Dorothy and Richard's house. We do this every Sunday without fail. Dorothy's making pot roast, Richard's telling his terrible jokes, and I'm bringing dessert. It's not complicated. It's not dramatic. It's just love. Pure, simple, unconditional love. That's what family should be. That's what family is. And I finally found mine. You have the right to be happy. You have the right to be loved. You have the right to choose who gets to be in your life, regardless of blood or obligation. I learned that the hard way, sitting alone in a hospital waiting room, watching a stranger cry. I learned it from 2 people who had no reason to love me except that they chose to. If you're reading this and relating to my story, I want you to know something important. Family isn't always the people who share your DNA. Sometimes it's the people who show up when no one else does. Sometimes it's the strangers who become your home. And that's not settling, that's not second best. That's not giving up on real family, that's finding it.